Welcome back to the Middle of Culture. I'm one of your hosts, Eden.
And I'm your other host, Peter.
Hey, Peter. You know what? Fuck America.
What? Fuck America.
That's all I have to say about that. That's probably not true. I'll probably come back around to that. How you doing, Peter?
So, it happened to be perfectly appropriate on Wednesday, the 6th. Was that the right date? Wednesday, the 6th, I just went on a cattle decapitation spree because I thought to myself, what band that you listen to despises mankind as much as you're feeling right now? And I thought, cattle decapitation does. And so at the end of the song, Geocide, when the song just ends with the lines, fuck the future, fuck the future, fuck the future, fuck all mankind, I thought to myself, I hear you.
Yeah, it's relatable content. I was going to make a joke about how when you said, I just got into cattle decapitation, I was going to be like, well, I sure hope you paid them farmers back for all of your gore. But it's different when it's a band you're listening to.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, so we are recording this in late November. As you can see, if you're looking at your podcast app of choice, you didn't get an app 2 weeks ago because Peter and I texted each other and we were like, yo, fuck everything. And we didn't.
It's true.
We didn't get anything recorded.
To be fair, we also had things going on.
We absolutely did. We were very busy. It's a busy time of year for both of us. You're doing a ton of stuff at work because everyone's hit their deductibles. So now they're like, I got to fit all my surgeries in before the end of the year. And you're like, I only have so many hours in the day, fools. And I had to go to a conference last week. I was telling you beforehand, this is a conference that used to be adjacent to the work I was doing, but is now totally unrelated to pretty much any of the work that I'm doing, with one exception. Of this 3-day conference, I went to a 10-minute lightning talk that was laser focused on my current work. And then as soon as that was over, I went and I badgered those two presenters for like 45 minutes and got a bunch of great information out of them. So, my wife always says that if you go to a professional conference and you leave with 1 to 2 good actionable items, that was a success. So
there you go.
I guess defying all the odds, this conference ended up being a success.
I mean, you got to just take what you get because otherwise things just really suck sometimes.
It's true. It's very, very true. So obviously we've been busy, but we've also been trying to find ways to distract ourselves. And not think about the state of the world, the state of the polity, and all these sorts of things. So what have you been doing to keep yourself busy, Peter?
Well, it's November. And so as we had talked about last year, and as I think we sort of alluded to on previous episodes, November is National Novel Writing Month, and I have been participating again. And so honestly, that's been most of what I have been doing in my free time. I get home from work, I have dinner, I write. Some days I get my writing done a little bit earlier and I may have like 30 minutes to chill out. Other days I just, write and then I go to bed. So in terms of like what I've been doing, it's just writing. We'll get to it a little bit. We're not talking about The Matrix Reloaded today because neither of us have had time to watch it, in part because for me, at least, it's just been writing. So yeah, it's kind of boring. I don't have a lot to report, but I do have a few things I'm hoping you can report on.
Okay.
But I guess
before we get started into that, tell me how it's going this year. This is year 3. This
is year 3. Correct.
I was going to do it. We talked about it last time we talked. I was like, I think I'm going to do it. I got like 3 days in and then the world fell apart and I have not opened that document since. So good on you for doing it.
That's fair. I
have not been.
I don't blame you. It's interesting. This year I went into it feeling like I was more prepared than I ever had been. I read 2 books. I read the book, How to Outline Your Novel by K.M. Weiland, and I read Story Structure or something. I don't remember the titles, but I'd read those books. So I went into this with some ideas in my head about what did I need to do, what were the key plot points, kind of what should be the flow of the story. And I had a story that was evolving as I was brainstorming and coming up with it. But I don't know. It's almost, I mentioned this before we started to record. I don't know if it's between work, between the world, between everything else. I feel so much more burned out this year that it really has felt like a chore. I'm still enjoying it. I still enjoy the creative process, but it's, I don't sit down. There were times in the last 2 years where I would sit down and I could bust out the 1,667 words in, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Sure. And most days now it's taken me at least a couple to get there because things just don't feel like they're flowing as well. And that's okay. Like I say, there's a lot going on. I will say I am enjoying using Obsidian to write instead of Scrivener. It is one of the things that I really like about Obsidian is the linking between notes. And so sometimes if I'd thought of a name for something or a name for someone and I'm writing, instead of having to go and look at a character sheet, I just hit double brackets and put in the first letter because maybe I remember that. And it automatically populates a list of notes with that title. And then I'm just like, oh yeah, there it was. And I can click and I can link to it to make sure that I'm kind of tying these threads together. And then, when you export it, it will remove those links and stuff. It'll format it without those. But for the actual purpose of doing the writing, that's actually been really, really good. So I've liked that.
Sounds handy.
Yeah, it has been really handy.
That's one of those things that God, I would have killed for that when I was dissertating.
Yeah.
There are so many tools like that have been incorporated into stuff that aren't necessarily for academic writing per se. Because what are you writing in again?
Obsidian.
Yeah, Obsidian, it's not like Scrivener. Scrivener is often used for dissertations and stuff. I didn't use it because I hate it. So my dissertation was written in Microsoft Word like a chump.
And see, I hate Word too. So.
Oh, I'm not saying I like Word, but it's better than Scrivener. I'd rather use Word than Scrivener. Because here's the thing, Scrivener does not like to play with images very well. And since I did a dissertation on comic books, there are 57 images in my dissertation.
I believe that.
And don't get it twisted, Word does not play well with images either. There is at least 2 spots in my dissertation where there is weird fucking spacing of a quarter to a half of a page because Word just wouldn't word wrap right around the image. And I tried everything I could, but I didn't care anymore. I reached a point where, here's a very funny thing. So when you do a dissertation, depending on your institution, you're going to have some sort of place you have to upload it when it's done. We use ProQuest at the University of Iowa. It's one of the most common ones on the planet. Most dissertations are uploaded to ProQuest. That is just pro forma, especially if you're in the United States, you're uploading your goddamn dissertation to ProQuest. So I would format it and send it off to the format checker at the university, the person who worked in the library. They would check stuff. There would always be little things to be like, ooh, you need to fix this on this page. You need to fix that on that page, whatever. So then you'd change it, you'd send it back, get it approved, blah, 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 blah. And so I did what you do when you're annoyed and you're naming files, thinking to myself, surely that file name won't be persistent. So I turned in a document that's final name was dissertation, final, all caps, final .pdf, thinking surely ProQuest will change this to either the metadata about my dissertation or gobbledygook, which is what it usually is when you download PDFs of like articles and dissertations from other sites that aren't ProQuest. It's like a string of 13 numbers or some bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, if you go to IOL Research Online and look up my dissertation, you will see that the file name is dissertation final.pdf.
I love that.
Thanks, ProQuest.
That's so good.
Thanks a lot. I love you too, ProQuest.
Oh, that is funny. I will say again, as you mentioned, Obsidian is not made for this. Obsidian, I don't even really know how to categorize Obsidian. A lot of people use it as a PKMS, personal knowledge management system. Some people just use it as kind of a note app. I do think for me, it has really started to shine as a good, just sort of, just a text app, just a time to write. And again, the ability to link those notes very easily, I think has helped me kind of think about things sometimes in a way maybe I wouldn't. There's a ton of plugins that can make it handy and useful. There's a long form plugin that's specifically for writing books and stuff. I had some issues with it, so I'm not using it right now, but that's okay. I just have a folder, and then in that folder, I'm just creating a folder for each chapter, and I'm basically making each scene a separate note, because then that way I can just drag scenes and I could move them around and I could change the order if I want to. That's not something I've done in the past. In the past, I wrote via chapters. Mm-hmm. And so this time I am making the chapter a folder, and then every scene in that chapter is its own note, so that I have that flexibility to move those around if I decide I want to, without having to, do any stupid copy, paste, that kind of crap. So it's been good. And then the fact that it syncs across everything has been great. Sometimes, I want to just write on my 11-inch iPad, and the keyboard for that's nice, and it's really easy to take. And so I can throw that in a bag. And maybe, if I don't have a meeting or some stupid shit like that during lunch at work, because why would we ever let anybody actually have a few minutes during work? But occasionally I can break it out and I could sit there and I can write for, 10, 15 minutes before I have to go and start working again. And then I can come home and I can do it on whatever device I want. Actually got I'm going to hold it up for the camera. Got a nice little Keychron K3 low profile mechanical keyboard that I've been doing the writing on my desktop.
This is a Keychron household, so Keychron solidarity, baby.
That does. It looks like a Keychron. Been very happy with the Keychron. Very nice to type on.
I adore this keyboard. My wife doesn't like it because it's so clicky-clacky, because I got blues in. No, I don't have blues. I have cherry reds in here. I almost put blues in here, but I put cherry reds. So it's not as soft as a brown, but it's also not quite as clicky as a blue. It's fine.
Yeah, I think these are browns, if I'm remembering. They have a good feel, but they're not too loud. So, it's been really nice. I think that in the future, I predict that I will continue to use Obsidian, because I haven't felt any frustrations with the tool. And I felt a lot of frustrations with Scrivener, both the iPad version, which is what I used the first year, and then the computer, the Mac, like I wrote on my laptop, used the full version the second year, and had a lot of frustrations with it. And not having those this time around with Obsidian, I think that's what I'm going to stick with. So in that aspect, I think it's been good.
Do you pay for Obsidian so that you can have the syncing?
I do it for two reasons. Number one, I find it a very useful application. And since it is completely free, I kind of look at paying for Obsidian Sync as a way to sort of throw them some money. But it's also,
this is good.
Yeah, it's also a much more, I think, reliable sync than other things. I know that there's fancy ways that you can hook it up with GitHub and make it sync that way. And I looked at that and I thought to myself, you don't want to do that. You'd rather pay $8 a month And I have not regretted that decision one bit. People try and use iCloud, and I do have a few vaults in iCloud because they're not ones that are really, they're more ones where I'm like, hey, I want to play around. I want to test out plugins. I want to do some other stupid things. Those ones I just throw in iCloud. And then that way, if, they don't sync perfectly or nearly as fast, then I don't really care. But yeah, I pay for sync because it has been, for me at least, like super, super stable.
Sure. That's nice.
Yeah, it's been a good app and has definitely, like, I feel like as much as I feel I have struggled in some ways this year as opposed to previous years, the tool has been one thing where I can look at it and say, oh no, once I kind of figured out my flow of how to use Obsidian to write this, I've been really, really happy with it. So,
Well, I'm glad that, like, despite everything, you're still hitting your goals and, like, making it happen, even if it's hard.
I am. I'm at today, just before we started recording, I finished my writing for the day. I logged. I'm at 37,550 words. So I am a little ahead of where I need to be to hit the 50,000 by the end of the month. I'll get there. It won't be done. Hopefully I can finish this one a little bit in a more timely fashion than I did last year. But because of that, I will say really the only thing I have done or checked out in these last, almost 4 weeks since we recorded last has just been music because I can absolutely write to music. I know a lot of people who can't write or study or read to music. I can do it to any kind of music. I don't need instrumental. I don't need whatever. So, I've been checking out some music and I am just pulling up some of the stuff that I've been checking out. Do you want me to talk about that now, or did you want to talk about anything else first?
No, by all means, tell me the music-y tales.
All right. Well, the biggest one, and the one that I think is going to, well, it was interesting. This was the last Friday of October. Was it Friday of October? Oh, God. No, I can't even remember. I believe it was because I was listening to it in Hawaii. So we went to Hawaii and for a work conference sort of thing. And that was really kind of where I was in my final crunch mode, getting stuff ready for writing. And 3 albums came out on that last Friday in October. And holy crap, every single one of them is going to land on the top 10 list at the end of the year. The new album from Gourea, they're a Portuguese kind of black metal band, Coma. It's great. It might be their best album yet. Their previous one that came out a couple years ago was one of my top albums of that year. But this one is just phenomenal. I love it. I don't know really how to say their name, so I'm just going to say Shkamash. It's Schamasch. Their album, The Malderer Chants, Old Ocean, came out. I am a huge fan of this band. First became aware of them with I believe it's their 3rd album, Triangle. It is a 3-album release. So it's like 3 full albums, and each one is a little different. The first album was kind of more traditional, Schamish sort of sound. And then there was one album that was a lot more experimental. And then the third is like, much kind of darker, real slow, doomy sort of stuff. It was really the album that came out 2 after that. Their previous release, Heart of No Light, is one of my absolute favorite albums of all time. If I had to categorize them, I would categorize them as it's rooted in black metal again, but it's very much not black metal. It's very atmospheric. It's very kind of avant-garde and experimental. And Old Ocean is a continuation of that. It's a Very cool album. Really, really been enjoying that. And then the highlight has been the album Kinship by the band Ioton. I talked about Ioton a couple years ago. They were on my top list with their previous album. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name now. Access All Worlds. That came out and it was kind of sci-fi themed, sort of progressive-ish death metal. I don't know. But Kinship is their new album that just dropped, and Kinship is fantastic. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if it's my favorite album of the year. A lot of it boils down to the lead vocals. John Aldora is the lead vocalist for Ioton. He's the lead vocalist for Hamfaro. He's the lead vocalist for, oh gosh, I can see the cover of the albums, but I can't think of the name of the band right now. Anyway, he's excellent. He has an incredible, clean vocals, just super powerful, and just this like anthemic quality to his voice that makes almost anything he sings, you just want to like stand up and be like, fuck yeah. And, but at the same time, he's got great growls, great screams. Ioton is again in that kind of they're kind of in the lines of like a Blackwater Park era Opeth, though a little less death and a little more progressive. But yeah, Kinship, I just keep coming back to it over and over and over again because it resonates with me. It's really good. A couple others, again, like I say, it's all I've been checking out because I can listen to music while I write. The new album by Monolith. They are a French band, kind of a death doom band. Their newest album, Black Hole District, is pretty cool. I think you might dig some aspects of Black Hole District. One of the things that Monolith does is they do interesting things with the time of their songs. And so you go back and like their first albums were big long. Like Monolith 1 is, 51 minutes, 58 seconds, single song. Monolith 2, same thing, 50 minutes, 25 seconds, single song. But then they got to their fourth album, Zeta Reticuli. It's 3 songs, each song exactly 15 minutes. And then the one that came out after that, Nebula Septum, is 7 songs, each song exactly 7 minutes. And then Octocora came out, and it's 9 songs, but it alternates. One song is 4 minutes and 4 seconds, followed by another song that's 8 minutes and 8 seconds, followed by another song that's like, they're all 808, 804, 404, or 408. So they do some interesting things with that. On Black Hole District, it is alternating 1 minute interludes followed by exactly a 10-minute song. So, and Black Hole District is kind of a concept album. It is, think Blade Runner, but darker. So it's kind of a futuristic science fiction story of a guy who's investigating something and like gets run out of town and killed, and like everybody dies because he's unable to complete whatever he's trying to do. But musically, it's pretty cool. So that's kind of what I've been checking out. So what about you, Eden? There's at least one thing that I really am hoping that you can tell me about, but I'm going to wait and see if you do.
Well, no, you got to tell me what the thing is you want me to talk about.
I gotta know if you've been playing Dragon Age.
Did I beat Dragon Age the Veilguard like a week after it came out? Yeah, you better fucking believe I did.
Good. Did you enjoy the experience?
I mainline a game. When a new game comes out, that is my hyper fixation until I am finished with the fucking game. It's what happened with Outlaws. It's what happened with Veilguard. This is what happens when a new big game comes out. Here is what I will say about Dragon Age the Veilguard. I think it is better than its harshest critics make it out to be.
Okay.
And I do not think it is as good as the copium people think it is.
I mean, I'll be honest, that's about what I expected and what I hoped for. I hoped for as long as it's better than what the people who are really panning it say, and I
Yeah.
don't expect it to like blow my socks off.
I think it is probably the weakest of the Dragon Age games.
Okay.
But I'm not surprised by that. There's a lot of things I like about it. I will not do any spoilers, dear listeners, because I know this game came out like 2.5 weeks, or I guess 3.5 weeks ago by the time you're listening to this.
Well,
Probably.
and I bought it. I'm looking forward to playing it when I am done focusing on this book.
Yeah, so I will not spoil anything. But what I will say in non-spoilery things I like and things I don't like. The combat is fun. I think it's really fun. I like it quite a bit. Explicitly, I always play, I don't know how you play Dragon Age games. I always play Dragon Age games as a mage because I think that the way that the magic users are treated in the Dragon Age setting, Thedas, if you will, is interesting.
Yeah.
I think that, the fact that you are essentially made a slave / ward of the state if you can do magic, unless you are able to hide it, is an interesting thing. And the way that people use that as a cudgel against you if you are the hero who is a mage makes it interesting. Is it the worst origin in Dragon Age Origins? Absolutely it is. But you deal with it anyway. Does it mean that you don't get your cool sister and you instead get your shitty ass brother in Dragon Age 2? Yes, it does. However, Hawk is still a mage to me canonically. And same with the Inquisition. I like playing a mage in these games. While I enjoy the mage combat in this game quite a bit, because it does, one of the things, when I played Inquisition, my favorite thing about Inquisition was to play whichever of the 3 mage subclasses gave you the spectral blade. So that every so often you would just conjure a spectral blade and in melee just fucking cut dudes down. That was my favorite spell in the whole game. So I like when I would play as a mage, I would build my character and like zero it in on that subclass. This game gives you essentially, because the combat in this game is really like a strange marriage between Mass Effect combat and Dragon Age combat in a lot of ways. You're down to only 2 party members instead of 3. You do pull up like the bumper menu and tell your companions to do actions like you would in Mass Effect.
Sure.
And also, I don't know how it is in the other classes. I've only played the once and I played as a mage. I got to imagine this is true of the other classes too. You got 2 weapons that you can swap between at will. So as a mage, you've got a mage's staff, which is good for long distance shit. And then you've also got this weird orb and dagger combo where like the orb is almost like a mid-range, like Uzi range, ranged weapon. And then you just got a fucking magical dagger that you slash at shit with. And so you will often you'll do combos. And I played most of the game in that like orb and dagger mode until I would have to fight like fucking dragons or snipers and shit, and then I'd pull out my stave and but most of the time it was orb and dagger. And so you would do a combo essentially. You'd be like, let me like do 4 hits with magic from the orb and then like rush up and like stab him to death with this dagger. And it's really fluid. It plays really well. I felt like really scrappy in a lot of these combat things because you have to pay a lot of attention to crowd control and things like this because they often throw a lot of baddies at you. So you need to be paying attention. And like, I found that it was not as easy as I wanted, not as I wanted, as I expected it to be, to like focus fire a specific bad guy and then mop up, like focus fire the strong one, mop up the weaklings afterwards. Because there was just too many things that could stagger me or too many things that could knock me out of a spell rotation. So I had to play a lot more strategically and a lot more tactically than I expected to, especially because I was playing in this like close quarters mage combat. And I thought it was pretty great. I've heard that the other, because you play as like a sword and board, like knight type dude or a rogue or a mage, like you would expect. And I've only played it the once as a mage, but honestly, even though I liked it, I kind of wish my character hadn't been a mage because, and this isn't, I don't think this is a spoiler. It didn't matter that my character was a mage the way that in the other 3 games, it fucking mattered that your main character was a mage. But in this one, like, it didn't seem to factor into the way the reactivity of the world at all, which I thought was an interesting thing. There are a lot of spots where it feels like the reactivity of the game is much smaller than I expected, and honestly than I think that the team probably wanted it to be. But I genuinely think it came down to a matter of scope and a matter of, we got to get this fucking thing out the door. Because it's been how long since Anthem came out and was a stinker? Like,
well,
6
and that's
years?
the problem, is that this was supposed to be a live service game, like Anthem.
Yeah. And I'm glad it's not. It's better that it's not. I'm glad they did not do Magical Destiny into Winter. Like, that would suck. Because that's just, it wouldn't work. But you can tell that the scope in terms of reactivity is just so much smaller. You don't import your information from the Dragon Age Keep like you did to Inquisition, where you could go in and tailor every choice that your warden made and every choice that your hawk made in order to influence the things that happen in your game of Inquisition. You delineate 3 choices that your Inquisitor made. And that is it in terms of reactivity to your choices in farmer games. And you create your Inquisitor, because the Inquisitor like appears a couple of times in the game. So like you are able to, try from memory to recreate whoever your favorite person you played as the Inquisitor and make them in the character creator or whatever. And like, that's cool. And I like a lot of the companions. I think I like them a lot more than a lot of people do, because a lot of people have complained specifically about the companion writing, and I like them pretty okay. I do wish they interacted with the main character more, because there's a lot of cool moments where you'll be walking around the hub and they'll be interacting with each other or talking with each other and having conversations, but you're like not in those conversations. So it kind of feels like you are separated from your companions in an interesting way. That is, again, normally you go walk up to them and the radial wheel pops up with like 15 annoying things you can talk to them about. And then Shepard says, I should leave. Like, this is what I expect from a BioWare game. And that's not a thing that this game gives you at all. So I did feel like there was kind of a weird disconnect between my character and the other party members. But I like the party members. And I think it's interesting you can romance any of them. All of them are potential romance potential romance candidates for your character. And I could sort of see the appeal of any of them. Like, if and when you play it, we can talk details and spoilers about who I romanced, but I mean, I just told you can romance. It won't surprise anyone listening to this podcast that of course I romanced the cool Sherlock Holmes mage lady. Of course I did.
There you go.
Nev Gallus, of course she was my romance pick. But like, I could see the appeal of various of these other characters in a way that like, I never wanted to romance Blackwall while I was playing Dragon Age Inquisition. I was like, fuck that guy.
Sure,
I never had a version of an Inquisitor who dated Solus, because fuck that racist egg. Like, I'm not friends with that man.
Never liked that dude. Never liked him.
But like, I saw the appeal of all of these characters. So I am hopeful that, I mean, it seems to have sold pretty well. I think that hopefully EA and BioWare are happy with the sales, even if it's kind of a mixed reception from people. As long as the money's coming in, it doesn't really matter what the reception is, right? So I hope that it does well enough that, and we know that they are not focusing on this game. There's no DLC for this game. Basically, everybody outside of patch folks have been all redirected to the Mass Effect team, because that studio is, for better or for worse, putting all their eggs in the Mass Effect basket, because they sold Star Wars: The Old Republic off to Broadsword. Anthem's dead. This is, I think, while there are people online who would disagree with me because of a hidden scene. If you get the best ending, this felt like the end of Dragon Age to me. They will wrap this up in some fucking comic books, but you are not getting another Dragon Age game. Game is over. So they are putting all their eggs in the Mass Effect basket. And I hope that works out for them, because this is a studio who I have a lot of fondness for. Even if, as I go back to their games now, I think to myself, they were always this clunky. I just didn't see it at the time. I still really want them to succeed, and I want them to be around. And so I hope it has sold well. I had a fine time with it. I really liked it. I thought especially the last act is really good. It has some really, really high highs. The dragon fights are kind of boring. They're not as interesting as in Inquisition, but that's fine. It's worth playing though. I had a lot of fun with it. And I'll probably go back and play it again, and I won't play it as a mage next time because I'll be curious to see what it'll be like. You have a lot of different choices. Each of the companions basically comes from a different place and a different faction. All of them except for like one. And you, as the main character, get to choose which of those factions your character is from, which will give you different dialogue options. You'll have like a different faction that you have a stronger tie with than some of the other factions. And so I would be interested to try the game again with a different faction, using a different tool set, a different weapon set.
Well, that sounds interesting, and it sounds about what I was expecting. I bought Dragon Age the Veilguard because I know I'm going to play it. And it's one of those things that I want to play it sooner rather than later. But at the same time, I didn't go into it expecting amazing things. Like, I remember going into the first Dragon Age expecting something incredible. I don't know if I got it. I liked it a lot when I first played it, but I did never go back to it. And this is one where I'm kind of like, hey, look, I want a fun game in the Dragon Age world. Cool. I'm good. That's all I need.
I think you'll get it. I had a good time with it. I'm glad I picked it up. I'm glad I played it early. I was not spoiled on it at all. I was able to avoid all spoilers. So I was not sure how it was going to end. And I was happy with it when it was all said and done.
Good. I'm glad. I look forward to getting at it.
Yeah. And it wasn't terribly long. I was able to play it in like a week and a half or something like that. I was trying to see if I could look up from my PC how long my Xbox playtime was, like you can on like Steam. And if you can, I can't find it anywhere, but it didn't seem, it was not 100+ hour game.
Sure.
Do I think that a lot of people will be annoyed by it because Baldur's Gate 3 came out and ate everyone's lunch last year, and so they're all like, this is what BioWare should have been building to? And it's like, no guys, like nobody thought Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be that. Like, maybe Larian did. Maybe in their heart of hearts Larian knew we're cooking with gas here. Like, this is going to be an amazing flash in the pan. But like, I don't think they did. I think it was just like the perfect like combination of everyone's into D&D in a way they weren't before. Here is a D&D game with a bunch of hotties that you can make fuck on screen. Like, everyone's going to go wild for it. But like,
yeah,
it came out last year.
Nobody expected it to come out and do what it did.
I can't imagine anyone. I can't even imagine that in their wildest dreams, Larian thought it was going to go like that. But like, it did. But then everyone's like, man, why isn't the Veilguard more like Baldur's Gate 3? Because Baldur's Gate 3 came out a year ago, and it takes too fucking long to make video games these days, guys.
Yeah.
Like, This is not even the era of the 360, where within 3 or 4 months of each other, Mass Effect 1 and Dragon Age Origins came out. Like, it ain't like that anymore. It takes a decade to make a video game nowadays.
Right.
And like, do I think that sucks? Yes. Is the old Sonic joke about I want worse games with worse graphics made by people who are getting paid more to work less true? Absolutely that is. That's what I want. I want games that look worse made by people who are paid more to do less work on them. Absolutely that's what I want. But that is not the way the industry is. Like, it is so caught up in making everything look incredible and be this immersive experience that takes too long. Games are all too long these days. And like, you can't make them faster than a decade anymore. It ain't the olden days. Yeah. You're not getting Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 within a year of each other ever again. They can't even put fucking Final Fantasy 7 Part 3 out within 5 years of Part 2. Like, it ain't like that anymore. So I am not surprised that they were not able to immediately pivot their entire plan and make it more like Baldur's Gate 3. Then it would have come out in 2028 and the currents would have moved on by then. I'm happy with the game I got.
It would have been a much worse game, because anytime they pivot and try and then push anything out, it ends up crap.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I'm happy with it. I had a good time.
Good.
I will get back to it probably next year. I don't want to play it any sooner than that again. I've already seen people who are like, I'm on my third playthrough. And I'm like, I didn't like it that much, guys. But I had a good time.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to playing it at some point. So in the future, who knows when, we'll have to circle back around and
we'll have to do a spoiler cast if and when you get around to it.
There we go. I will. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. Let's see some other stuff I've been up to. So this is the most cliche shit in the world, but like Wednesday morning, the 6th, I pull my phone out from underneath my pillow and my phone is screaming at me everything that happened the night before. And I start doom scroll, and I did not sleep well. Like, this is at 2:30 in the morning. I'm not sleeping well. And I doom scrolled for like 4 hours that morning. And then I was like, this isn't healthy. This isn't good for my brain. And so I took all of my socials apps that were on, I am a pretty minimalist person when it comes to my phone. I don't have a ton of apps on my phone. And what I do is on 2 pages. I have a first page that has all of the apps that I use on the reg, and then a second page where I bury the things I care less about and have like a bunch of like folders. So like all of the utilities crap that you open once in a blue moon is all in a utilities folder. Or like, my Amazon app is on page 2 because I don't need to go to Amazon that often. So I took all of the socials that were on the page 1 of my phone screen, dumped them into a folder on page 3 that just says garbage. So that I don't touch them as often. I have to make the conscious decision to like swipe twice, open a folder, and then click on a socials app rather than them just all being there the second you open the phone. And I installed the Kobo app so that I could just read things that would sync with my Kobo e-reader. I will say, Kobo, maybe stop being dicks about only syncing a book I purchased from you. Come on, guys. Let me sideload something that I bought somewhere else or got for free or wherever and let it sync between devices. Come on.
Right.
But regardless, you can sync books that you purchase from Kobo between devices. And so I have installed that.
I'm trying to think of anything that will sync books that you didn't purchase from them.
They won't, but they should. They all should.
I think that this is sad. I think the Books app on iPhones and iPads does.
Yeah, but I'm not installing the Books app on my e-reader.
No, I know. That's the problem anyway. Sorry.
I need something that goes to my Kobo Clara 2E. And so that my option is the Kobo app. And so I just downloaded it and was immediately annoyed because, of course, you can't purchase books in it because they don't want to give Apple their blood money. Because Apple's a ghoul who's like, give me 30% of your book sale. And so they're like, buy it somewhere else. So then I like pull my e-reader out and buy it from the e-reader and then it pops up in the app or whatever. But So I'm in a Discord, and some folks were talking in the book section about things they'd been reading, and someone recommended the Steerswoman series by Rosemary Kirstein. Have you ever heard of this series?
I have not.
It is a fantasy series, and you know me, I'm not, for all my talk of Dragon Age for 20 minutes here, I'm not that much of a fantasy person. I just don't like fantasy as much. I'm a sci-fi person. That's what I'm far more interested in than fantasy shit. But this book came really highly recommended by this friend, and it was $2.99, and I was like, fuck it. So I bought it, and that is what I have been, I finished it. It's quite good. I'm on the second book now. But that is what I do now when I pull out my phone to doom scroll, is I try, instead of swiping over and opening a social app, to just like, oh, I'm just going to read. But The Steerswoman is a book series about this woman named Rowan, who is a steerswoman. And in this universe, basically, steerswomen are these people who are explorers, scholars, sort of things. They're like the anti-wizard, because their thing is to go around, be among the people, learn as much as they can, record as much information as they can, and they believe in like an ethos of radical transparency. You can ask a steerswoman any question, and they will answer you as honestly and forthrightly as they can. That means, however, you need to do the same with them. If they ask you a question, you need to answer as fully, forthrightly, and honestly as you can too. And if you refuse to answer a steerswoman's question, then you are under ban now, and no steerswoman will ever answer a question from you ever again. But so that is kind of who a steerswoman is like this explorer, scholar who's going around trying to learn more about the world. And the book starts with Rowan having found this gem on her excursions that is like a bluish black and really shiny, and has like kind of geometric designs all through it, and is like already inlaid in like a silver back, and like has like a clear lacquer over the top. Do we all hear what's going on here? It took me a second or third description of the gem to realize, oh fuck, that's a solar panel. She's talking about a piece of a solar panel. And then I was like, oh, this isn't science fiction. This is science fantasy,
post-apocalyptic.
baby. This is Swords of Shannara, baby. This is a post-apocalyptic situation. And I was immediately more interested in it. But essentially, by her trying to figure out what is this thing and where did it come from, it puts her oppositionally against the mages, the wizards, who are now all trying to capture and interrogate and kill her. And that is where like the drama of the book starts. It's pretty good. It was a real smooth read. It was not very long. But I really, really liked it a lot. Rowan is a really cool main character. She's very complicated. She's very flawed, but she's a really, really good main character. She early on teams up with this woman, Belle, who is an outskirter. She's basically like a barbarian from the outskirts. And she becomes, her bodyguard essentially, and they go on this adventure together. It was really good. I was impressed with how much I liked it. And like I say, as soon as I finished it, I like rushed on my phone. I rushed over to my e-reader and bought book 2, 3, and 4. So they would all show up on my phone.
Cool.
I am sad to report that the plan was for this to be a 6-book series, and book 4 came out in 2004, and we have not gotten anything since. As far as I know, Rosemary Kirstein is still alive. I don't know how much she's writing still, but there has not been any movement on follow-ups, unfortunately. I'm still going to read them all. I'm always annoyed when a series isn't finished, but I'm going to read them because I am really impressed with them so far. They just like really strike a fine line of, yeah, this is fantasy stuff, but there's clearly something bigger happening. And I want to figure out, why did this world become the way this world is? It's been really good.
Cool. I'll have to check that out. That sounds interesting. I did forget to mention, while I was in Hawaii, before I had to start writing, I did finish Mistborn: The Final Empire, the first Mistborn book, kind of going back and rereading. And then I started the second, and then the writing happened. So I did get some reading done, just not as much as I was hoping.
Happens. Yeah, I had a good time with it. And again, it's just
cool.
It's nice to have something else to think about.
Yeah.
Rather
definitely.
than scrolling through what ghoul has been nominated to which cabinet position.
You know, I heard this or I read this somewhere and it just made me chuckle. And because I just feel like I needed a laugh, and I'm sure we all need a laugh, I heard the following. Some president-elects assemble a cabinet. Trump is deciding to assemble a junk drawer.
Yeah, that is about right.
But
that feels accurate to me.
Well, cool. Anything else?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I will say I'm not going to go into the details about these, but I did think it was funny that I went on this work trip and I was like, I should take some stuff to read. I'll take 6 volumes of manga. Surely I won't get through all that. Dear listener, I had those done by Monday afternoon and I was not due home till Thursday. Unfortunately, the tendency to want to the tendency to want to doom scroll was very strong, and so instead I read 6 volumes of manga, one of which got really weird. I thought it was just a cute romance, and then it got to a weird sci-fi time travel situation, people sending their consciousness back through time to their earlier bodies. It got weird, but it all turned out okay in the end. Strawberry Fields, once again, it was pretty good. 3 volumes. Check it out.
There you go.
That's, I think, kind of where I'm at. It's been
cool.
A depressing time.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of has been, hasn't it?
But, you know, I've been thinking a lot about it. And like, what can I do as a person? I have no power. I have no institutional power. I have no national level ability to do anything. I barely have any control or power or anything at a local level, even, because obviously these things are decided by groups of people and I am a single person. And I've just been thinking a lot about what can I do?
Yeah.
And how can I help the people around me? Because I'm not the kind of person who is going to suffer terribly for a lot of reasons during a Trump presidency, but a lot of the people I know and love are. And so I feel like all I can do is make space for them and care for them and love them and try to help the people, try to build community where I'm at. And that's all I feel like I can do.
That is extremely similar to something that I actually put up on Instagram in the days following. It just kind of said the same thing. You know, I recognize I am not someone who is going to suffer from a Trump presidency. But like you said, I have a lot of people who I love and who are very important to me who could. And so, you know, all I can be, what I kind of said is I said, look, I'm a safe person. This is a safe space. Like, I'm here to love, to support, to be an ally to anybody who needs it and wants it. And that's what I can do. So,
yeah. So take care of each other. That's all I can say.
Exactly.
And that's my only advice for anyone who's listening, who's like, I don't know what to do. Take care of each other. That's all we can do.
Yep. It is all we can do.
Is there anything else we want to talk about before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, I don't think so. I think we've kind of hit the highlights, and, you know, give me 9 days, 8 days, whatever. Then I can be done having to write so much every day, and then I can watch a Matrix movie.
Yeah. In theory, we should be back in December with The Matrix Reloaded, dear listeners. So fingers crossed that happens.
Fingers crossed. And if not, we'll be back with something different.
We'll be back. Yeah. So that's where we're at. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to talk to us about, you can always reach out to us at feedback@themiddleofculture.com, I think.
Yep, that is correct.
Suddenly my brain was like, that's wrong. But it wasn't. Yeah, so feel free to send us an email. You can always leave us stars or reviews on your podcast platform of choice. And we will be back in 2 weeks, hopefully, to watch a movie.
Hopefully that's the plan. But if not, like I said, we'll still be back.
Yeah, we'll see you then.
Bye.